The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the tranquil beach. Small waves lapped gently against the shore, creating a soothing melody that blended with the soft rustle of palm leaves overhead. It was our 30th anniversary, a milestone we had looked forward to celebrating in this picturesque paradise. As I stood hand in hand with my wife Mary, taking in the beauty of the moment, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude. 30 years of love, laughter, and shared memories had brought us to this idyllic island, a perfect backdrop for commemorating our journey together. But amidst the serenity of the scene, a sudden confession shattered the tranquility. Mary's words hung in the air, stark against the backdrop of our anniversary bliss. "Let me be clear, Mary," I began, struggling to comprehend her revelation. "We're here to celebrate our love, and yet you're suggesting spending the night with another man." Mary's expression softened, her eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and determination. "Please don't be angry, Mark," she implored, her voice tinged with urgency. "I love you more than anything. But this is about John and Amy, their story. It touched me deeply." Confusion swirled within me as I tried to make sense of Mary's words. John and Amy. They were the couple we had befriended during our stay, their warmth and camaraderie adding an extra layer of joy to our anniversary getaway. But now their presence seemed to cast a shadow over our celebration. "Amy wants me to keep her father company," Mary explained, her voice tinged with empathy. "John has been lonely since his wife passed away, and now with his illness, Amy wants him to experience some happiness before it's too late." The pieces began to fall into place, but I couldn't shake the unease settling in the pit of my stomach. "But why you?" I questioned, my voice betraying a hint of desperation. "Amy insisted that it had to be someone willing," Mary replied, her gaze steady. "John doesn't want to pay for companionship. He wants it to be genuine." The weight of Mary's decision pressed heavily upon me, a mixture of hurt and disbelief clouding my thoughts. "So you've already made up your mind," I realized, a sense of resignation seeping into my words. "I spoke with John," Mary confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "He knows, and he agreed. I couldn't say no, Mark. It's something I feel compelled to do." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the gentle lull of the waves against the shore. My heart ached with a pain I couldn't quite articulate as I watched Mary prepare to leave for the evening, her resolve unwavering despite my objections. But as she turned to go, I couldn't let her leave without expressing the turmoil raging within me. "Mary," I called out, my voice trembling with emotion. "I can't just stand by and watch you do this. Don't you see how much it hurts?" Mary paused, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I'm sorry, Mark," she murmured, her words heavy with regret. "But I have to do this." And with that, she slipped away into the gathering dusk, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the shattered fragments of our anniversary bliss. In that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I couldn't help but wonder if our marriage would ever be the same again. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the beach as I stood, feeling a mix of anger and hurt swirling inside me. In my hand, I held the diamond earrings I had bought for Mary as a symbol of my affection. But now, they felt more like a mockery of our love. "Take them off," I instructed Mary, my voice trembling with emotion. "You're not going to belittle me while wearing my gifts." Mary protested, telling me I was being irrational, that we had agreed to this arrangement of swapping partners. But her words only fueled my rage further. In one swift motion, I removed her wedding ring and demanded the earrings be returned. With a heavy sigh, Mary complied, her eyes filled with regret as she handed them back to me. I told her not to bother coming back the next day, that she could stay with John and Amy. Then, with a heart heavy with betrayal, I retreated to the beach, seeking solace in the crashing waves and the numbness that came with a six-pack of beer. As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, Amy approached me. She was a stunning young woman, a stark reminder that I was still married, at least for the time being. I told her of my anguish, of Mary's betrayal, and of my plans to divorce her once we returned home. But Amy tried to convince me otherwise, insisting that Mary's actions were out of compassion, not betrayal. She even tried to distract me, undressing in front of me, offering to help me forget about Mary for the evening. The beers I had consumed threatened to cloud my judgment, but my anger prevailed. Taking Amy's hand, I guided her into the villa, my resolve unwavering. I refused to sink to Mary's level, no matter how tempting the offer. Once inside, I firmly closed the bedroom door, locking out the world and any thoughts of infidelity. Despite Amy's pleas, I remained resolute. She had two choices: leave or sleep on the couch. Either way, she wouldn't be sharing the bed with me. And though she tried to change my mind, Amy eventually gave up, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight of my broken marriage. As exhaustion washed over me, fueled by both emotional turmoil and alcohol, I fell into a fitful sleep. But my rest was short-lived, interrupted by another knock on the door. This time, it was Mary, my disloyal soon-to-be ex-wife, begging for forgiveness. But her words fell on deaf ears. I pushed her away, refusing to let her touch me, refusing to let her into my heart again. As she rushed into the bathroom, sobbing and apologizing, I made myself some coffee, trying to drown out the pain and confusion that threatened to consume me. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a harsh light on our shattered relationship. And as I stood there, alone in the kitchen, I couldn't help but wonder if there was any way to salvage what was left of our love, or if it was already too late. We had mobile service on the island, so leaving before our evening flight was an option. Glancing at my watch, it read noon, and I realized I was stuck with her for the rest of the day. Mary entered the kitchen, a towel wrapped around her and her damp hair hanging over her bare shoulders. A few days ago, seeing her like this would have excited me, but now I just sipped my coffee, staring at her. "Mark, I'm clean now," Mary said, her voice pleading. I scrubbed myself several times. "Please, I'm still the same person. I'm still your spouse. Dress up, and then we need to discuss our next steps." I responded curtly, "But Mark, aren't you going to accept me back? Amy and John said you'd want me back. They said you'll love me more than before. Please, Mark, I want you to accept me back. Claim me again." "Quiet, you damn traitor," I snapped, unable to contain my anger. "I'll never touch you again. Now go over there and get dressed." Mary burst into tears and rushed into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. As I finished the last of my coffee, Mary reappeared, noticing the empty coffee pot. She didn't dare ask me to brew more. Silently, she filled the kettle and turned it on. Once the tea was ready, she poured herself a cup and sat at the table. "Mark," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "Amy told me that you locked her out last night. I don't understand why. I thought you'd have spent the night with her and then excitedly share all about it this morning. I thought we'd laugh about our adventures and then you'd make love to me all day. Who are you? You can't be the same woman I married 30 years ago." "How could you think I'd agree to this ridiculous plan?" I countered, my frustration mounting. "Mark, we're on a tiny island. The other two villas are empty, so it's just the four of us. No one will ever know what we did here. You had a beautiful young woman pleading with you, and you had my approval. What sane person would pass up such an opportunity?" "You don't understand," I replied, my voice heavy with disappointment. "I loved you, just you. It wouldn't matter if no one else knew because I would. I made a pledge, and pledges mean you keep your promises even when no one's watching. Clearly, your pledges mean nothing to you. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the beach as I sat, feeling a mix of hurt and anger churning inside me. Mary's words echoed in my mind as she tried to justify her actions, but all I could feel was the betrayal of her breaking our vows. "But they meant everything to me, and you violated them, Mark," Mary pleaded, her voice trembling with emotion. "I thought you'd find it enjoyable. I knew it'd be a bit awkward at first, but I thought once you started with Amy, you'd really find it pleasurable. I didn't know you secluded yourself from her until she told us this morning. I just assumed you had a fantastic night, Just like you, Mary," I interrupted bitterly. "How was your fantastic night with John?" "Absolutely amazing," Mary replied, without hesitation. "John is a fantastic lover and I genuinely enjoyed myself. You could have had an amazing night too, but no, you had to play the martyr. Well, it's your own damn fault you missed out." I waited until my rage subsided before responding calmly. "No, Mary, I already had 5 amazing nights with you. I didn't need an amazing night with Amy. I was anticipating another amazing night with you, but you chose John because you thought he needed you. Well, I needed you too, but I guess that didn't matter to you." Leaving Mary speechless, I got up from my chair and walked over to my sun lounger, pulling my beach hat over my eyes in an attempt to find some solace in sleep. About an hour later, a looming shadow fell over me, and I looked up to see the smug face of John, Mary's lover. He tried to apologize, but I could see the triumph in his eyes. It dawned on me then that it was all a trick, a deceitful plan concocted by this conniving man to deceive Mary and me. As he extended his hand for a handshake, I pretended to reciprocate, then swiftly struck him in the throat with my fist. He staggered backward, clutching his throat, and as he fell to his knees, I delivered a final blow to his temple with my elbow. Mary's scream reached my ears, and I turned to see her rushing towards us. She revived John, and as they retreated back to the villa, I returned to the porch for a beer and a snack, watching from a distance as they tended to John's injuries. Later, when the boat arrived to take us back to the mainland, Mary quickly packed her things and rushed to the pier. On board, she and Amy spoke to a crew member, who I assumed was contacting the authorities. Upon arrival, we were met by a uniformed officer who escorted us to a small office. Mary tried to interject, but the officer silenced her, focusing on me instead. "I understand you had a conflict with Ron Cook and his partner, Amber Jones," the officer began. "No, officer, you're mistaken. These are the Phillipses, not Cook and Jones," Mary attempted to clarify, but the officer cut her off. "Madam, please be silent. I want to speak to Mr. Stevens without interruptions," the officer snapped back. Unperturbed, I maintained my composure. "Possibly, but I won't confess to anything," I replied. The officer chuckled, acknowledging my refusal to cooperate. "Well, Mark, this isn't the first time Cook has run this scam on unsuspecting tourists. This is the 5th case we've heard of involving some sort of argument or complaint. Miss Jones's usual next step is to contact your wife in a few months." As the officer continued, I realized the extent of the scam we had fallen victim to, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication knowing that justice would soon be served. After the confrontation on the beach, the officer filled us in on the intricate details of Ron Cook's elaborate scam. It wasn't just a simple affair, it was a meticulously planned operation aimed at exploiting unsuspecting couples. Ron Cook, the mastermind, would use his charm to lure husbands into a false sense of security, while his partner in crime, Amber Jones, played her part in manipulating the wives. As the officer continued, Mary's tears flowed freely, mingling with the salt water on her cheeks. The weight of her betrayal and the realization of being deceived struck her hard. "Oh Lord, I've been so naive," she confessed between sobs, her voice barely above a whisper. I committed infidelity by falling for this falsehood. The officer nodded sympathetically, understanding the gravity of the situation. He explained that Mary wasn't alone. Other women had fallen victim to the same scam orchestrated by Cook and Jones. They were all planning to file fraud charges against the deceitful duo. Turning to us, the officer offered a solution. If we were willing to drop the charges, he would negotiate with Cook to do the same. With our flight scheduled for the next morning, Mary expressed her desire to return home, her voice trembling with a mix of remorse and exhaustion. Feeling a sense of resignation, I agreed to drop the charges, eager to put this painful chapter behind us. Mary, her emotions raw and her spirit broken, simply nodded, her eyes downcast. Once back home, the reality of our shattered marriage set in. Mary's attempts to apologize and explain her actions only added to the anguish of our situation. Despite her breakdown and subsequent hospitalization, the divorce proceedings pressed on, leaving us both emotionally drained and financially strained. As we negotiated the terms of our separation, including the sale of our house and the division of assets, the once promising future we had envisioned together seemed like a distant dream. Now obligated to pay child support for the next decade, I couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness at the thought of supporting the woman who had betrayed me. But amidst the pain and turmoil, a glimmer of hope emerged when my daughter introduced me to her neighbor. It was a chance encounter that blossomed into something more, offering a ray of light in the darkness of my failed marriage. Though we both carried the scars of our past, we found solace in each other's company, slowly rebuilding our lives one step at a time. And as I reflected on the tumultuous journey that led me to this moment, I couldn't help but marvel at the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity to find love anew, even in the wake of heartbreak and betrayal.